Before we get started with the software, I wanted to spend just a moment to talk to you a little bit about the format of this particular software program. Meditech's Web Ambulatory is a web-based product, meaning that instead of an icon on your desktop like you're used to today with NPM, instead you will use a web browser such as Internet Explorer or Google Chrome. In this instance, based on information from Meditech and our own trials, we have determined to use Google Chrome for the best user experience. When we do go live with the software, you should have Google Chrome installed on your PC with a link to the website for Web Ambulatory. In the meantime, it may be necessary for you to download Google Chrome from Google's website. To log into the system, we're going to double-click here on Google Chrome. And just note, if you don't have Google Chrome installed already on your computer, you can download that from the Google Chrome website. If you use Internet Explorer, you may very well experience some slowness and some difficulty scrolling. So we are recommending Google Chrome for this project. So I'll just double-click here. And the web address for the software is this ambulatory.hancockregional.org/handtest/. That is the link for the test system. When we go live, the link will be the exact same except for the test will be removed from the hand test /. For now, we'll just use this hand test and hit enter, and I'll give you a link to that right now. Okay, move forward and you'll get this sign-on screen here for Hancock Health. You'll notice here that it's a sign-in with your organizational account. Your sign-in should be your user ID, not your email address, but your user ID. It should be that usually 5 digits. Mine is KHIAT. And then for domain, you do @ and then it's hmhhs.org. And there's some instructions here on the screen in case you forget that. But it stands for Hancock Memorial Hospital and Health Services. It's the old email extension. And for some reason we have to still use that for this software. Password will be your usual password, and you click sign on. It brings you here to choose the ring, and again we're in the test system. We'll choose the test ring. When we go to live, you should just have the live ring, and for you it may actually bypass this and go directly to your access, but go ahead and choose that here. If you happen to get this screen, again you may not, but if you do get this screen, it's asking you to pick your job or your role. For you, your role would be the mnemonic for your location, so AFP, HFP, etc. And then your role, whether it's provider, clinical support, whatever it will pick, you'll have a role there. For me, I'm going to stick with Web Ambulatory Core Team, and again, you may skip this step if you're located just in the practice and don't have multiple access. It may skip this step for you. I'm going to click Sign On. This is a new screen. I'm not exactly sure what this is about. I'll just select laptop and hit save, and then it lets me log in. Again, you may not have that screen come up for you. Here on Clinical Home Screen is where we're going to go next, so I'll just click here on Clinical Home Screen. It's asking me to choose my facility again because I'm not associated with a specific practice. This hasn't been preloaded for me, so I'll put in my location and then click OK. And then we'll log in here to the Clinical Home Screen, which I'll cover for you in an upcoming session. Okay, and this is our home screen. I want to focus first on this black bar at the bottom of my screen. Now, if you've logged in and are trying to follow along, the black bar for you might be on the top of the screen also. It just depends on the type of computer that you're using, whether it's a touch screen or not a touch screen. So here on the return to is where I want to start here. This return to icon is kind of nice because it will actually allow you to it'll track where you've been. So if you're in the middle of a patient chart, you get called away or you get you're looking up a different patient and you need to go back to one that you were already on, the system will remember where you've been and will allow you to click on it and go back. So say I wanted to go back to this AFP ASH test chart. I just click here and it takes me right back there. Now let's say that I'm done with that. I want to get rid of it. I'm done with that for now. I can go ahead and click the red X there and close out of that chart. And then I'm back here on my clinical home screen. The other thing I can do here is I can hit this close all, and what close all will do will close the whole system out. It's actually kind of like a log off screen. It'll close out all those open windows and then bring you back to where you sign on again. The next button here on the right is the home button. So let's say I was in here NFPM's Doug's chart, MPFM Doug's chart, and I wanted to go back to the home screen. I can just click the home button and I'll be right back here again at the home screen. That's nice because you can always then go right back to your schedule to get back where you need to be. Workload is another button here. We'll cover workload in more detail later, but I did want to just point out to you, workload is where you get your results will come. It's much like a task list. Your notifications for labs, system notifications, your patient was admitted or discharged or was seen in the ED, those kind of messages will come here. Refill requests, all that will funnel through your workload. So we'll spend some time later kind of going through some of those. And you'll notice because I have a patient listed here, 3 additional icons have shown up here. So anytime I'm in a patient's chart or I have a patient selected, I'll be able to have these additional 3 icons. And I will cover those in more detail later also, but I did want to point out you have the chart button here, which will allow you to see the patient's chart. You can look at a document or document on that patient, and you can also initiate orders for that patient. Here on the right, we have the compose, which is basically how you compose one of those workload messages. So you can pick a category, pick a patient, send that to someone, send it maybe to your clinical support person, asking them to contact the patient, or asking them to do some kind of task. You can do that through the compose. Just a quick point out here, anytime you have one of these blue screens that show up that don't have an exit or save button up here, if you just click outside of that button, it makes that blue screen go away and you can get back to your main screen. Those screens are called popovers. A lot of them now have exit and save, but if they don't, if you just click outside that box, it'll make it go away. More is your it's more options. It has your sign list. You can set some of your preferences here. I'll spend some more time in a later component showing you some of the functions of more, but for now just know that that more button is here. Log off here will allow you just to log off the system and it'll go away. That's pretty much it for the black bar. We'll spend some time next talking a little bit more about your schedule and how you can modify your view of that. We'll go ahead and focus on the rest of the clinical home screen here. On the left we have the patient schedule for today. So this provider you can see has 4 patients scheduled. Pretty light day. If we want to see what's happening tomorrow or another day, we can just click in the date for this week. If you want to see in a future date, maybe a month from now or a specific date, you can just open the calendar here and click on the date that you're interested in. Anytime we want to, we can just click the Today button and go back to today's schedule. This More button here allows us to either print the schedule. You can print today's schedule, or you can also go to the scheduling grid, which we'll go ahead and do right now. And that's more of a linear view of the schedule, so we can see with the grid structure, we can see where the holes are, and we can see here that this provider has a lot of holes today around this 4 patients we have scheduled. Again, we'll click the home button to go back to the home screen. I want to focus a little bit on this coverage icon here, which is just right now 1 person you'll see. If we click on the person, it'll give us 2 options. We can either turn our coverage on or edit coverage. If we have kind of predefined coverage that we've already put in the system to track our coverage. We could just click the coverage on, and it would add, if we were covering for our partners or for other clinical support people or whatever the options were there. We can also do edit coverage to create what our typical coverage options look like. So we have some groups that are already built. So you should have under yours a group that is associated with your practice. So whatever practice you're located at, you should have a provider group or maybe clinical support group to be able to choose. So let's just say that for today, I'm going to cover for a provider. I just click on a provider and click Save. And then that provider's schedule would also then show up in my clinical home screen. In this particular case, that provider isn't scheduled for anything, so it didn't really adjust my screen. But normally, whenever you cover for someone, you just get their schedule loaded into yours. Some details around the schedule. We have the time, of course, of the appointment, the patient's name, their reason for visit that was put in by the front office at the time of scheduling. So Mr. Amtest here was scheduled for COPD. The patient's age. This yellow triangle is an indicator that there is a special indicator on this patient. So if we click on that icon, we can get more detail around that. So this patient has been indicated as having an infection precaution. So we should take appropriate measures to ensure. Now we also have another special indicator here on Amanda Test. She's a fall precaution, so we would again want to take measures to ensure that we kept her safe that way. We have the patient's arrival time, so these patients have been checked in a long time, and then how long they've been in that status. So this patient's been in arrive status for 3 hours and 4 minutes. The document at this point is pending. We know that because we have the pendings here. Also point out here that under Amanda Test, we have this blue square with the black O and a blue square with the black L. Those are our indicators that there are office procedures and or labs that have been ordered for this patient. So rather than creating a task on the work list in this new system, instead we have this visual indicator, which is a new feature of the system. So if the provider orders something, it'll show up on the home screen for the clinical people as one of these icons that they can just click on and see the details, or they can go directly into the patient and into the document here and look under office procedures and see what they have scheduled. Again, go back to the home screen here. And then we have on the right hand side here, we have a listing of other things. We have our workload, which is this is just a listing of the workload. If we clicked on that, it would take us to that workload list that we discussed a little briefly yesterday. Again, we'll go into that in more detail, but that listing from the home screen is just a list of workload. Recently accessed, if we click there, that is a list of patients that have been accessed by you in the last 5 days. So the system kind of keeps track again of where you've been and gives you that easy button so that you don't have to search for the patient. If there was a visit date associated with that, so let's say that there was a document you started on a patient, the visit date will be on the right-hand column. Otherwise, it would be a patient maybe that you visited that you were just looking up information. They didn't have a visit scheduled that day. And then the bottom here is quick links, and quick links is a way to have some websites that you can easily access that you frequently access. We have included 2 already for you, and you do have under ambulatory preferences, you have the ability to add more quick links. If there are more websites that you frequently visit, you can add to that quick links list. I'll just show you here quickly. You can say we wanted to view the immunization schedules. We just click on it, it'll hyperlink there. Now sometimes when you do this the first time through Meditech, it may give you the little pop-up blocker here on the right hand side, so you think nothing happens. But if you look, you'll see the little icon that indicates that there is a pop-up that you need to click and allow for the pop-up blocker to to ignore that, to allow pop-ups from that site, and then you should be good to go. Okay, once we look up our information, we can close that out, and then we'll be right back where we started. The only other thing to really go over on this screen is this find patient, and so if you didn't have the patient that was brought up and the patient wasn't on your schedule, you need to look for them, you could just use the find patient to do the search for the patient. Just a quick note here, when you search for a patient through find patient in this new system, you would do the last name, comma, first name, no space. If you do a space, the system doesn't understand that. So if you do last name, comma, first name, it'll put everything in the right place. You could also search by birth date there. So that's it for this section. We'll take up next with some of the clinical documentation screens.